All right, so I'm back with the game here, and I really want to start to move forward with this, but before we add any more features, I think it's time we take a pass through the code and do a little bit of cleanup. Um, the one thing is the code is getting quite long, and the other one, there are some things that we've done in here that are going to make it difficult to do things like deciding when a game starts and when a game ends, or maybe restarting a game or advancing levels. Um, things like that aren't really possible the way the code is structured now. Um, so I'm going to jump in here and just start making little tweaks, and you should follow along. There's a possibility your code can't be modified exactly the same way I'm doing it now because you might have already added some other features. But for the most part, you should be able to do all these things. And I would also say, don't go on to any of the other videos until you've gone through this code cleanup process, because the code in future videos is going to be starting from this endpoint. All right, so I'll get out of the way. And all right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for like redundant, like duplicate code. And one thing I see is, we have two enemies, and with the exception of just a tiny little bit of code in this update section, everything in the enemy is identical. So their behavior is really the same. What we have is the first enemy that takes one hit to die, and then the other enemy which takes 3 hits to die. And so in the easy enemy, I checked to see if anything hit him and then killed it. And in the harder enemy, we lost a unit of shield strength for every laser that hit. And, now that I think about it, this easy enemy is really just a special case of this hard enemy, but it only has a shield of 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete the easy enemy. And I can just rename this class to just the normal enemy. And what I'm going to do is make that shield an argument that can get passed in. So we'll do shield and shield. And so now when I create my enemies, right, I don't need to worry about having 2 different types. I can pass each in with the enemy image that I want them to have. And for the easy enemies, I'll just pass in shield of 1. And for the hard enemies, pass in a shield of 3. And let's see if this works. 1. Okay, and everything works. So, all right, so we just, trimmed out about 15, 20 lines of code right there. So that's good. Something else I can do is when I'm making the ship, I really didn't need to make the group and then add the ship afterwards. I can just put the ship in right when we make the group, and we can trim out a line of code there. I can do the same thing with the enemies. All right, sprite groups can take a multiple arguments. So if I passed my enemies in there, then I can get rid of that line. And then let's see, another place where I can get rid of some code is in the shoot function. I'm making a laser and then immediately adding it to the group. So what I'm going to do is just, so this laser variable is just kind of a throwaway temporary. It's holding it just for getting from one line to the other. So I'm just going to cut that out, paste it in there. And I'm going to put little spaces around that so you can see easily that it's a layer. So I just tightened up the shoot function a little bit. Let's see. We'll go into the drop bomb section, and we can do the same thing. We'll take this bomb out and paste it in there, and I'll just tighten that up. So, all right. So I think I like how this works now. So we have a little bit less code to work with. So let's go to right? The next thing I want to think about is we need a way to be able to like start our game over or to start a level. And right now, all of this code happens once when I run it. Just make sure there's no errors. But after the game ends, there's no way for me to reset up the game and put a new ship in the game and put the enemies back. And if I wipe out all the enemies, there's no way for me to start a new level. So what I'm going to do is move this code into a couple functions. So the first one is going to be my setup function. And this is going to happen just when a new game starts. Actually, let's call it new game. And the only thing that lasts throughout the game is going to be the ship and the player. And then other stuff, like we start a level, well, every single level is going to have its set of lasers and bombs and enemies. And I'm going to I don't like the way this is organized, so I'm going to all right. And so I want to be able to start a level. And so now I've got these things in functions. So what I can do is we'll start a new game, and then we'll start a level, and then we'll get into the game loop. So what's going to happen? So it should work just like before, in that all of this code and then this code runs, and then we start playing the game. But now that it's in functions, when we start adding the ability to advance levels and adding the ability to do things like restart, right, this code will still be accessible again. So I'm going to run this, and it's not going to work. And so we'll talk about why, and then we'll do a quick little fix for that. Okay. And it said, it got to lasers update, and it said lasers is not defined. And so it got to right here, and right away it didn't know it didn't know about the laser sprite group. And that's because the laser sprite group was created inside the start level function, which means all of these the start level function runs, and all of these variables that we made only exist within the start level function. And once you get out of the function or in other functions, they can no longer be seen. So what I'm going to do, data line global, and let's make our enemies, our lasers, and our bombs global. And what this will do is this means that they're going to be accessible outside of this particular function. And so, okay, now we got the player update, and it says player is not defined. So we can fix that by going to our new game function, and I'm going to say global. And let's see, the only things that we need, so the start X and start Y aren't important anywhere else, but the ship and the player are. And so now get some white space in there, and let's see if this works. Okay. And so everything looks good. And now we're in a much better position. We're in a much better position to go ahead and start adding new features into our game. All right. If you have any questions, let me know.